Kevin's last name?
Gleason.
Gleason, Kevin Gleason. So he's going to talk about abusing SA tools for internet collaboration. I underscore the app because if there's a tool, it will be abused. And Tom, go ahead. And also remember that we will break at some point for a raffle to raffle the book, and maybe Tom can find a stopping point in the raffle.
Sure, sounds good. I noticed there was some discussion over this Unix code, so before I begin, I'm going to explain it. I explained it earlier, and I apologize to people who have heard this already. So this is an interview question that I use where I work. The question is, what does this shell code do? And it's valid in C shell and bash and K shell and binsh and stuff. So supposing that A and B exist already, the first thing that happens, well, maybe I should give it away first and then explain. It swaps two files without using a temporary file. So this opens B, but there's no one reading from B yet, so it just holds the file handle open. And you know, in Unix, a file that is opened by a process and held open, you can delete it, and the operating system still has that file open. When that process finally gets around to reading it, then it'll read it, and the file doesn't get deleted until the last file handle closes. So B is being held. This deletes B and renames A to B. So now we've done the first half of the swap. A is been moved to B. And then cat, well, now we finally are reading from B, and cat is sending its output to A, completing the swap. So that answers that question. The other question I usually get is, don't you work at a security company? Why does that security company let you travel around talking about a book? The reason is we have a very technical product, and we like to have people at our company that can be known for doing very technical things. And so it's part of our PR campaign that we have authors. My chief scientist is Bill Cheswick, who wrote a book about firewalls that some of you might have read. And who? Bill Cheswick? Yeah. So his second edition will be out soon, and the last time he said that was 2 years ago. But this time, they've set a hard deadline. Basically, whatever they're done in October is going to the printer. So early next year. It takes a while to get these things to the bookstore. So, it really is. They declared feature freeze. And people ask, if you could forgive me, I'm going to give a 2-minute plug about what the company I work for does, because we're small and we need all the PR we can get. We're a company called Lumeta, and we do a number of security tools that are useful to intranets. So one of the tools we do is a Firewall Analyzer. It takes your rule set from your PIX firewall or Checkpoint or Cisco ACLs and maybe some others soon, and generates a set of HTML pages that are an audit of your rule set. Now, I think most people here are from academia, but in the corporate world, a lot of corporations now employ teams of auditors that audit every corporate firewall on an annual basis. And some of these companies have thousands of firewalls. And it takes them about a week to do this audit. This tool does most of the brain work for them and cuts that down to about 1 day. And you can PGP encrypt your rule set, email it to us, and we batch process it and send it back and charge you $2 grand, or you could buy a box that'll actually do the process for you. And then you could, I guess, run your own company charging $2,000. The other thing we do is Bill Cheswick is also known for his internet maps. And so a lot of people say, well, how much money do you make selling those internet maps? You know, it can't really be that much. And that's not where our business is. We do those internet maps of people's intranets. So we connect on the inside of their firewall, do the map, and it's not just about pretty pictures. Along the way, the data we collect to generate that map contains a lot of really valuable security information, We take this back to the SOC, the Security Operations Center. We do a number of analyses of the data and give you a report that shows all sorts of things. The big thing that we find is rogue internet connections. So if you have a large corporate internet with some draconian, firewall policy, chances are you have dozens of people that have figured out ways to get their own private internet connection or VPN or something, and we can detect those using some patent-pending techniques. And we give you this great report that says, hey, here's the 50 people that are breaking your policy. And at one company, we found what we call a class 2 leak, which when we did a reverse DNS lookup of the IP address, it was like hotsexybabes.com. So, I guess this guy didn't need a raise that year because he was certainly making enough money with his little e-commerce site. But that company had one less employee the next day. Anyway, thank you for indulging me talking about the company I work for. The talk goes by a couple different names. It's also how to write a book with someone you don't know. I try not to have this talk be a big sales pitch for the book. What this talk is really about is the process that went into writing a book. It's almost 800 pages. It's sort of a difficult project. And I think some of the techniques we used were interesting. So my co-author is, it's a little cut off, but Christine Hogan is this wonderful system administrator who I didn't know when we began writing the book. And so we had a lot of interesting technical challenges. An alternative title is Why is Writing a Book Like System Administration? And is that contrapositive? I got a C in that class. Why is system administration like writing a book? So, don't you hate overview slides? So how is it similar to writing a book? Well, we addressed it in many ways like a software project. From the tools we use SSH and CDS and Make. I'll talk more about these later. But also, once you've done system administration for long enough, you start to realize that learning the commands, which you used to think, gee, system administration, if I could learn every command in Unix, I'd be the best system administrator in the world. Well, you start to learn that that's not really true. The manual is always going to help you if you can't remember what option to cat puts a $sign at the end of each line. Who knows? Who knows? Oh, so, girls, he's already taken. Sorry.
That's what got it good at man pages.
Exactly. So the real sysadmin skills, when you become a more advanced system administrator, are along the lines of project management and negotiation and communication and customer service and dealing with bosses and dealing with subordinates. So writing this book, we had to make a lot of system administrator-like decisions. We had to plan a security policy, plan network issues, network performance, and reliability and data integrity issues. So, so we're going to talk about those various things. First, I keep saying first. I've said first 3 times so far. So we had to pitch when you want to write a book, first you find a bunch of publishers and you pitch your idea and you get taken out to lunch, and that's great. And so we were, this is like if you've seen the movie The Player, where everyone's pitching ideas for Hollywood movies. We get a big name like Tom Cruise, and it's going to be the first of its kind. It's going to have, it's going to be the book that's about the things that are the same for every operating system, like negotiation and communication and stuff, without being really specific about commands. And that sounded too wonky, so we sort of backed up and said, well, it's the book that's going to be about all operating systems, the things that are common for all operating systems. And as I say here, the final result overlaps about 80% with our original proposal. Here's some quotes from the proposal. Actually, the best one is this. There's no command in Unix or NT that magically helps a system administrator understand what their customers want or executes on plans developed. This book will develop those skills. So this is sort of a master's level system administration book. Each chapter has the exact same format. Of course, you have your introduction, conclusion, and exercises. But each basically has two halves. The basics of that topic and the icing. The basics are those fundamental key issues that you have to deal with. For example, on backups, that would be capacity planning and policy and cost and budgeting. And then icing is those issues that you really shouldn't even try if you haven't gotten the basics right first. So for backups, that might be, well, one of the basics for backups is they need to be sufficiently automated. And icing would be automated to the point where you don't need to touch the tape jukebox for a month or so, or off-site backups being automated, these kind of things. So one of the best pieces of advice I got about a month before we shipped the book was Bill Cheswick, who I mentioned earlier, said, I think 13 chapters is the perfect size for a book. If you pick the topic, you pick 12 things you'd like to say about that topic, and you write one chapter each and slap on an introduction. That's really the right size for a book. And I said, thanks, Bill. Ours was 32 chapters and 3 appendi. It's so big that I can't list them all in a linear list. I've sort of paragraphized them. But we did break it into 4 sections. The principles, which is sort of the rudiments. The processes, which is really about making change. The process of controlling change, controlling the chaos, change from the micro view, changing one server, the change getting a little bigger, making massive amounts of changes throughout an organization, and issues about centralization and decentralization. The practice is really our best practices section, where this is the real opinionated part where we said, email, okay, given, when our bosses let us run free, what would we do for an email system? Oh yeah, this is how we would do it. Oh yeah. And we do that for each of these different subjects. And then management is really the last third of the book. And I know management's a scary thing for technical people, but as a senior system administrator, you start dealing with more and more management issues. So this is where we talk about building the right organizational structure for your sysadmin team and how different structures affect the way you work and can make you more or less effective. Perception and visibility is sort of how users see you and how you can, some tools you could use to be seen in a better light. We have, well, the guide for technical managers is for you as the new technical manager, and the guide for non-technical managers, sort of the chapter that you tear out and you hand to your boss, or the first non-technical person above you in the org chart. And hiring and firing. Firing is one of my favorite chapters because it's really a security problem explored in a lot of detail. And we actually have a, yes? Oh, we actually have a 3-phase sort of technique for securely and ethically firing your system administrator. Yes?
Having now written the book and had a chance to go wild in setting things up, have you or Christine actually done what you said, if I didn't have a boss, I'd do this, and went, Jesus Christ, did I really say that?
Well, when I started writing this book, I was working for Bell Labs. And when I finished, I was working at Lumeta. And I was one of the original 7 employees. So we had to build an infrastructure from scratch. And I would pull out the draft copy of a chapter and say, well, this is how we should build the email system. And our boss would say, great, and since we don't have $10 billion, what would you like to do? What will we actually be doing, Tom? Oh, we just slap it on the main server like everything else.
But have you or Christine discovered that what you wrote really isn't what you really would have done?
I don't think we've discovered anything that's like, liability suit bad. We've gone back and read some chapters and said, well, we should emphasize this more, or gosh, we really left this out. One of the 2 negative reviews, well, okay, we haven't gotten any negative reviews, but 2 of the negative things that our great reviews have said